You're listening to the Hella Well with Danielle show, a podcast taking women of color on a journey exploring all things wellness and travel related. We're all about showing you how to put on your oxygen mask first and creating lasting self-care habits that will free you to travel the world and live the life you truly desire, and not one you have to fake loving. I'm your host, Danielle Washington. Now let's buckle up and start this journey. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Hella Well with Danielle podcast. I'm your host, Danielle Washington, and I'm going to share with you today a trick that I use to quickly and with ease let go of resentment and anger. And when you hear this, you're going to be like, duh, why didn't I think of this? Or why am I not using this already? That was me. So don't be alarmed when that happens and you hear there's like, oh my God, I could have been doing this all this time. Knowing it and doing it are two different things. But once you at least know about this trick, you're going to be like, okay, let me at least try it. And I can tell you right now, it has changed how I show up, and to the point to where my therapist even made a note about it. But before I get into that conversation and kind of give you the real on how to use this trick to let go of resentment quickly and with ease, I wanted to have a quick heart-to-heart with you. A huge goal behind me having this podcast is to help people shift their mindset of what is wellness and start a conversation. Start a conversation about, how do we get past it is what it is to living the life that we truly desire, not one that we're settling for. But what I'm realizing in having this conversation in the podcast and just talking to some other people is that I feel like I'm talking at you. And I want to have a conversation with you. So I invite you, if you're not already following me on social media, especially on Instagram, you can follow me on Hella Well with Danielle. And actually, you don't even have to follow me. I just want to hear from you. I just want you to reach out, DM me on Instagram and say, hey, I heard your podcast. Hey, I'm listening. Hey, this really affected me in this way, or hey, when you said that, it made me think this. I just want to hear from you. I just want to have a real conversation. And I feel for me that this healing journey that all of us are on, this wellness thing, whatever you want to call it, life in general, it's great to try to do it on your own, but as a collective, we are much stronger. And I want to create through this podcast a collective conversation. So not just so I can heal, you can heal, but so we can all heal other people. And so we can be living a better life collectively. That's my goal with this podcast. And so, reach out and just send me a message. Say, hey, I heard you. Hey, this made me feel this way. I'd love to hear from you one way or another. This is a collective. So that was my heart-to-heart conversation. And so let's get in on this conversation for today about how to let go of resentment. And this topic came out of a conversation I had with my therapist. And shout out to my therapist. My therapist is bomb. I love therapy. Therapy is such a huge part of my way of refueling myself and making sure I'm good. But my therapist, I always think that having the right therapist is also key, because my therapist makes me think of things and reminds me of when I'm making progress. And today she was like, okay, I see you. You are really changing how you handle resentment. And I'm just like, listening to her, I was like, wait a second. Oh my God, I've been using this trick for a while and not even realizing that I've been using this trick. And I'm just like, it was mind blowing to even think that this was coming up. And so I'm super excited to kind of share this with you. But to even begin with the trick, I'm going to start with a small confession. Ever since childhood, I have had confrontation anxiety. I'm not sure if that's like a medical term, if it's in any psychology book or not. It probably is not. But for me, even saying the word confrontation makes my heart kind of tighten up. And I get this kind of sick feeling in my throat. My chest hurts and my gut hurts. And I don't like confrontation. I really don't like confrontation. I run from confrontation. People may not realize that, but I really don't say a lot of things I'm thinking. And I think a lot as a Virgo, Mercury in the 10th house in Virgo. I am someone who thinks a lot, and I have a lot to say, especially when I feel like someone has made me feel resentful or angry, but I never say it because I have confrontation anxiety. I'm going to look this up after this podcast. I'm like, is that a real thing? I don't know. But again, I hide so many things that I say. And instead of saying them out loud, I have conversations in my head. Like, I am the queen of the clapback in my head. I have these long conversations that can last for hours or even days with people who will never know that they were in the biggest dragged out conversation argument with me because I was angry, because I had this resentment that I was holding up against them that I didn't say. So in my head, I'm like, I'm saying what I need to say because I needed to get this out. The other person is saying, oh my God, da 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 da. I'll say this back and back. They'll say that. And I'm going back and forth with these people in my head. And I gotta tell you, yes, I do recognize this is probably not the healthiest situation. Have I been doing this forever? Yeah, I have. Because it was my way of saying safe. As a child, I didn't feel comfortable being able to say what I wanted to say. I did at one point in time. And then it was literally and figuratively beat out of me to the point where I then was taught to hold in my thoughts, hold in my anger, because I was an angry kid. I won't lie. I was that kid who, would kick holes in the wall. I was a soccer player, so I loved kicking things, and I kicked holes in the walls. I was really angry until I internalized my anger, and then internalizing my anger, which kept me safe from saying the wrong thing, safe from being chastised or told that I was a bad person, all these different things. I was internalizing it and eating all this resentment. Every time I felt resentful, I was a Sizzler, and they were having this all you could eat platter of resentment and anger. And I was eating all of it till I got to the point where I was just sick internally. I might have been keeping myself safe externally, but internally I was making myself so sick that it was showing up physically in my body. I have really bad high blood pressure. Do I think that this situation where I'm internalizing conversations and having anger moments and resentment towards people, do I think that plays a part in my high blood pressure? Yeah, it probably does. It probably plays a part in all these different things that I'm a strong believer in. Our emotions show up in our body, and when you're holding on resentment, you're holding on to this anger, it physically manifests in our body in so many different ways, to where it shows up as high blood pressure, it shows up as heart disease, it shows up as all these different things, it shows up as blocks of your chakras, and we don't even know it because we're thinking, well, it is what it is. This is what I've always done. This is how I keep myself safe, by not verbalizing what I'm saying, by holding on to my anger internally and having those conversations in my head. I replay so many different conversations in my head. To some days I can't even sleep because I'm having these long replay of conversations that actually never occurred because I just didn't feel safe to be able to have those conversations. So I realized having the replaying conversations in my head and assumptions that I make that people would say this and I would say that is so not healthy. But again, it was how I knew how to show up. And since childhood, I've been externally shutting down in moments of anger and resentment. Instead of opening my mouth and saying what I feel, I just shut down, ate the buffet of resentment. That's how I kept myself safe. I'm a person who loves research, and so I wanted to look to see kind of what does research say about this whole thing about resentment and people who hold on to resentment and how healthy they are or not healthy. And of course, I was able to find something. So research has shown that people who do well at forgiving, people who are able to let go of their anger and the resentment, typically experience fewer negative physical health symptoms like heart disease, like cardiovascular disorders or immune system situations, high blood pressure. And they also experience less negative mental health symptoms like anger and depression. So I feel like it kind of goes back into my thought process of what I'm learning, like how once I start using this trick I'm about to tell you about, I'm showing up differently and I can feel the difference in my body. And before I even get to talking about the trick, I wanted to point out, it's not just about letting go of resentment, like larger things that you're resenting or larger issues of anger. That's great and all, and it's important to get rid of the big boulders. But it's the small little things that happen every day that we hold on to that are add up, and those are the ones that are killing us. It's those little resentment things that we hold on, those little replays of conversations that we assume someone said this or was feeling a certain way, and then we act on those things that are the real killers that are affecting us physically, emotionally, spiritually, and all things above. So what's the trick? You're probably going to get to the trick, sister. So the trick that I have been able to figure out, and it was something that I just started doing until I realized that I was doing. My therapist literally was the one who kind of helped me figure out that this is what I've been doing, was this thing called self-distancing. So again, you go back to the idea that we replay conversations in our head. Instead of replaying conversations in our head from the first person perspective, the thought process is to replay those negative experiences from a distance. So as if you were like a fly on the wall, as if you were an observer, someone who was videotaping the whole situation and not actually a participant in it. And coming from the fly on the wall perspective, you look at things completely different because you're not emotionally charged to it. You're seeing it from observing it. So you're able to step back, and in my case, take several steps back and replay it from a different perspective. And when you start looking at a conversation or a situation that made you feel angry or made you feel resentful from the perspective of an observer versus being a participant, it looks a lot different. Perfect example. I had a situation recently where someone I work with was upset that I missed a meeting. And they're like, you didn't show up to the meeting. And in my head, I'm like, well, you scheduled a meeting in the middle of my therapy, and if I don't recall like declining it, but I know that I would have never said yes to a meeting at the same time as my therapy, because again, my therapy is important to me. Like nothing, like unless something's urgent with my parents or something else comes up, it's very rare that I will decline my therapy session. Because again, that's how I make sure I'm making sure I'm living hella well. And it's very important to me. So it's a non-negotiable unless there's something major that I can't move or I'm able to move my therapy appointment in advance. In this case, had I known about this meeting, because I don't, again, recall seeing it on my calendar, I wouldn't have been able to move it in time. And I would have declined saying, I'm not available at this time. But what was going on in my head and how I would have normally historically handled this situation was, oh my God, how dare this person schedule something and demand that I not see my therapist at this time? How dare they say that they're more important than my therapist and that I need to be available at all hours of the day? Granted, this person was saying none of this, but that's the replay that would have gone in my head. I would have made the assumption and guessed that this person was saying by scheduling this meeting at the same time of my therapy appointment, that they were saying that they were more important. Note, if you look at anyone's calendar, if you're on Outlook and you're trying to schedule something with someone, it doesn't say what they're doing. It just says they're busy. But in my head, historically, I would have gone to that point, like she would have known, she should have known that that was an important, sacred time for me. And instead, again, I've gone into this whole realm of going off the deep end. But when looking at it from the fly on the wall perspective, looking at it from the perspective of an observer, I was able to see, hey, this was just a miscommunication. And really, it wasn't that big of a deal as well. It's like, it's not like, oh my God, the world's ending. We are going to not be able to talk forever. No, she was like, hey, I thought I scheduled a meeting. I was like, hey, Whether you did or not, I was busy and I wasn't able to meet. But hey, let's meet at this other time. Easy as pie. No one's upset, miscommunication, and it's fine. And it's, again, if you take away the assumption and the guessing what other people were thinking and what their intentions were, you show up differently. I wasn't emotionally charged to the situation of thinking they're coming for me. Looking at it from the fly on the wall observer perspective, I was also able to see this type of situation is a trigger for me. It's a trigger for me in the sense that that person saying, hey, I scheduled a meeting with you and also let me show you where it's on my calendar, triggered me to think this person is thinking you're not doing your job that you said you would do. You're messing up. And then I started thinking to myself, what will people think? Will people think that I'm a failure, that I'm not good enough? And that's what a situation like this triggers for me when I'm not coming from the perspective of the observer, because I go in with all these assumptions in these types of situations, and it becomes this big outdrawn confrontation, anger, resentment moments, when all it was again, a miscommunication of calendaring that was easy to fix within less than a minute. And when I'm able to use a self-distancing trick that I've been utilizing recently, it's like less intense. It's less intense. It's not emotionally charged. I'm able to reflect on the narrative that I'm telling myself, which helps me let go of resentment very fast, and to the point where resentment, if it even shows up, melts away, and it feels like it's melting away. Like it literally feels like when I'm angry and I have these moments of self-distancing, I feel like when I start using self-distancing, it's literally as if it was this big block of ice that's been melting into water, and I feel good. I feel clearer. So what do I notice about myself when I use self-distancing? I notice that I feel lighter. I feel like my heart is more open. Like I just feel like I have more capacity. I realize that I care less about people's reactions or guessing what they are thinking or feeling. And it's not that I'm saying I don't care about people's feelings, but it's the fact that I can tell my truth in a way that I don't have to worry about people's reactions. I'm able to speak and come at things in a different perspective, and I'm able to see when something maybe trigger me. What I also noticed about the situation of using self-distancing is that I didn't realize I had a pattern of holding in my emotions and not being able to speak my truth. It sounds silly that, yeah, I've been doing this since I was a kid, but it's been so ingrained into my habits that I didn't even realize that I was literally eating a buffet of resentment and holding it in my body and not feeling light every time a confrontation or potential of a confrontation came up. So to be able to let go of past resentments is even as beautiful in this situation that I learned as well. Like it doesn't have to be just something currently. Like for example, something happened to me a couple months ago and I realized I was holding on to it. And when I started using the self-distancing practice, I realized, oh, yeah, this person might have, wronged. I felt that this person wronged me a certain way. But if I look at it from the observer perspective, it actually was a blessing because I would have put myself in a situation that didn't fit my needs had I stayed longer. Had I continued to push and hold on to that resentment, it would have blocked me from the clarity to get to some other points that I got to when I was in Bali. Like when I was in Bali, I had a situation where I had to confront someone. And it was because I've been using this self-distancing approach to letting go of resentment and anger. Again, without my knowledge, I've been using it. But hey, I'm taking claim for it. But because I've been using this and I've been practicing this tool, when I had to have an opportunity to confront someone, I didn't have the replay of the conversation before it happened. I wasn't replaying before I actually spoke to this person. Oh, I'm going to say this. They're going to get upset and it's going to be this. It's going to be a problem. We most likely will never talk again. Instead, I was able to confront this person about something I needed to say, something that I needed to verbalize for my own peace of mind, from a place of love, but also from a place that it didn't matter how this person reacted, or didn't matter of me guessing or assuming what they would say, because my only goal and intention was to speak my truth. And not from a place of being resentful, but coming from the place that I just need to verbally use my words to express myself. I've stated a couple times this year, this is not a year of hiding anymore. Danielle is no longer in the witness protection system, and me holding on to my resentment and eating all of that and keeping myself safe externally and protecting myself externally because that's what my ego needed to do it's not okay anymore, because that doesn't feel good, because it shows up one way or another. You may think you're protecting yourself. It's showing up some other way, and it was showing up in my body in a way that it doesn't feel good. So I'm now in a space where I'm speaking my truth and finding ways to do it in a way that I'm not replaying conversations in my head. And I'm not going to lie. Am I worried about falling back into old habits? Yeah, I am. I'm totally that what if girl. Well, what if you go back? What if you forget this and you start having these conversations in your head and your blood pressure goes so high that you have a stroke? I mean, I will go far off the deep end of the what if conversations. This is far off the deep end I do with conversations in my head. But then I started thinking, what if I shifted my what ifs? What if I shifted my mindset to say, what if I was able to let go of resentment and anger with ease, effortlessly? What would that look like? How would I feel? What would that allow me to have come into my life? What would that give me capacity to bring into my life? How could I expand more into making my authentic self feel more like a home versus a place I visit every now and then? And realizing that it's a choice. Every time I have a situation, it's a choice how I show up. Do I want to choose to internalize and keep my mouth shut and have these replays from the first person perspective where I'm assuming someone said something else, I'm yelling and clapping back in my head and making myself feel internally sick? Or do I want to find ways to look at a situation from a distance where I am an observer and I'm able to have a different perspective on the situation? I'm able to look at both sides of the situation. And for me, it's an easy choice because I know how I feel. I feel honestly happier when I'm able to let go of situations and feel as if resentment and anger is melting from my body. I feel lighter and I feel happier. And that's kind of where I want to be. That's the Danielle that I'm striving to stay to be. So tips that I have for others, if you want to use this, because I do want you to try this. I want you to try this. Let me know how it goes. Let me know, A, that you're trying it. So send me a DM at HelloWell with Danielle on Instagram and let me know, hey, I tried this. And let me know, did it work for you? Did you have any challenges? What were your challenges? Maybe us talking together, we can work together as a collective to work through those challenges. The other tips I would say is to simply try to not replay assuming and guessing what other people are saying or doing or thinking. Try to not replay things from the first person perspective and have these conversations all in your head and these arguments in your head that are really not helping you. Instead are hurting you. Instead, limit yourself to the spoken words and observable actions. And I keyword observable actions, because when we assume, my dad makes this statement. He says these weird things. He always has these like little weird things. But he's like, when you assume, you make an ass out of you and me. But it's true, because when you make assumptions and then you act on those assumptions, you're making decisions based off of things that could not even be true. So that's why I say limit yourself to observable actions instead of making decisions on assumed actions. Self-distancing takes the guessing and assumptions out of your relationships, and it helps you show up in a way that honors your voice, but also helps you let that ish go. And isn't it time to start letting resentment and anger go with ease and effortlessly? I'm going to go with the answer is yes. That's all I have for you today. I hope you got something out of this podcast today. If you did, if you feel like there's someone who needs to hear this, please make sure to share it with them. I look forward to talking to you next week. Have an amazing week. And remember that you're worthy of letting go of resentment, not assuming, and just feeling that form of joy because, hey, just because you breathe. I'll talk to you later. Ciao. Thanks for joining us this week on the Hello Well with Danielle show. Make sure to visit our website, hellowellwithdanielle.com, where you can subscribe to our show on iTunes, Spotify, and Amazon Music and never miss an episode. Also, you can follow us on social media at Hello Well with Danielle on Facebook and Instagram, and Hello Well Danny on Twitter. And if you like hella love the show and got some good nuggets out of it, know that I'm not too proud to ask for you to please leave a rating or review on iTunes so that we can continue to expand our reach and help other women of color. Again, thanks so much for listening, and I hope to see you next week. Ciao. Thanks for joining us this week on the Hello Well with Danielle show. Make sure to visit our website, hellowellwithdanielle.com, where you can subscribe to our show on iTunes, Spotify, and Amazon Music and never miss an episode. Also, you can follow us on social media at Hello Well with Danielle on Facebook and Instagram, and Hello Well Danny on Twitter. And if you like hella love the show and got some good nuggets out of it, know that I'm not too proud to ask for you to please leave a rating or review on iTunes so that we can continue to expand our reach and help other women of color. Again, thanks so much for listening, and I hope to see you next week. Ciao.